because we didn't think we were going to be.
We didn't think we were going to make it.
No, there's been some technical difficulties here tonight.
Yes, there have been. You know, Brad, you told me when we were setting up, you said there was no chance that we were going to go live.
Yeah, at 4 minutes till, I said there's no chance we're going to be able to go tonight because we had no internet.
We had no internet.
Zero.
And we had no clue what we were doing.
Well, we still don't have a clue what we're doing.
Yeah, we're still not sure that our internet will last. But Trevor has...
he saved the day.
He did save the day, but he has said that he will try to hotspot us if we need to.
Really?
Yeah, but, I mean, the odds of that working out here in the middle of nowhere is probably not very likely. So if you're joining us, you are lucky.
Yep.
Well, maybe they're not lucky.
I'm trying to do something with my phone here, and it's not working very well
Are
either.
you trying to start something?
I'm trying to start something.
We're not going to tell them what you're trying to start, though. Wait.
Well, I don't know. I don't know.
Look, there we go.
I just don't know.
Hey, welcome, everybody.
Welcome, everybody.
How are you doing today, Brad?
I'm doing well.
Are you doing well?
It's been kind of a long day, but we're having dinner after this.
Yes, we are.
And so we're excited about it.
And you tasted something for the first time today.
I had stuffed crust Pizza Hut pizza for the very first time
Stuffed crust pizza. How many of you actually believe that this was the first time Brad's ever had stuffed crust pizza?
This was the first time I have experienced stuffed crust pizza. So there you go.
That's kind of crazy to me. Stuffed crust pizza is my favorite pizza kind.
Well, yeah, it was mine after today also.
More so than thin crust?
I like thin crust also.
Yeah, you like thin crust quite a bit.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
really like Noble Romans.
Thanks, Susan. Susan said nice haircut. I appreciate it. Hashtag ad. That's my sister,
Your
Danny.
sister. There you go.
So if you need a haircut or all four of them, like Brad's, then you can go to Elevation 138 Salon off Lima. Not being paid for that advertisement, but
you know, just sucking up to your sister.
Danny. Oh yeah, yeah. I get haircuts out of it.
There you go.
Yes. Okay. So before we get started today, I want you in the chat tonight, if you are willing, post something good that happened today.
Like eating stuffed crust
like
pizza.
Eating stuffed crust pizza. Okay. Even if you had an awful day, it was hard, to wake up in the morning and live. I want you to post something good that happened. I saw that. So Trevor is making a comment on our Facebook page about Noble Romans Pizza.
I love
Brad, why don't you tell them
Noble
about
Romans
Noble
Pizza.
Romans Pizza?
I love it. I'm nostalgic. I love Noble Romans Pizza.
Okay.
And I took all you guys to Noble Romans Pizza down in Indianapolis.
Yes, you did.
And you all hated it.
It was the worst. And you know what was so funny about this whole experience, and Trevor can attest to this?
It's one of my favorite pizzas.
Is he compared Noble Romans Pizza.
Well, this was totally accidental.
It wasn't Little Caesars. It
was Little Caesars.
Oh, it was
It
Little
was Little
Caesars
Caesars.
pizza. I thought it
and
was
I don't like Little
CC's.
Caesars pizza.
Oh my gosh!
But the way they make their they're Sicilian.
He said.
Who did?
What? No, I'm laughing at Susan. She was laughing at the 4 hair joke. I always make fun of Brad's 4 hairs.
Barb said the same thing this morning. Hey, let's get started.
All right, let's get started. All right, hey, welcome everybody.
Let's leave my hair alone and let's get started.
We like to start off with a brain teaser, and last week I was incorrect in mine.
That's correct.
And that is correct.
You've been incorrect forever.
Yes, I've never gotten one right, but I don't think you're going to get this one right either. Okay?
That does not surprise me.
And so, Brad, I'm going to ask you a question about Jolly Ranchers.
Jolly Ranchers.
You and I were actually just talking about Jolly Ranchers.
You like the blue ones.
I love the blue ones.
And I'm not a Jolly Rancher fan.
Yeah, you don't like hard candy.
I'm not a hard candy fan.
Yeah, and that's okay. But I wanted to ask you, so we're talking about a 5-pound bag of Jolly Ranchers.
Mm-hmm.
How many Jolly Ranchers?
How many ounces are in that?
No,
okay.
no, 4. How many Jolly Ranchers are there approximately
in a 5-pound bag?
In a 5-pound bag.
I get some leeway, don't I?
I'll give you within 5.
Wow.
Because I'm assuming they're within 5.
5-pound bag.
5-pound bag.
I'm gonna say 245.
245. You are about 100 off.
345.
375. I said about 100 off. Well,
yeah.
Yeah. Hey, so Courtney, thank you so much for telling us it was sunny today. That was something that was good.
That was good.
That was a good day. Yes, it was. So
it's
hey.
nice to have some sunshine. I wish it'd just be warm too.
Yeah, me too.
So there you go.
Yeah,
well, hey everybody, welcome to Generationally Speaking. My name is Brad Maddox, and I'm the lead pastor here at Crossbridge Community Church. This is my good friend, Mr. Jordan Chitwood, who happens to be the young adult pastor right here at the Crossbridge Community Church.
Ooh, I do happen to be in. Are we saying it's the?
The.
Kind of like how colleges
Exactly.
say this is the
The.
University
yes.
of Michigan.
Yes, there you
Yeah,
go.
well, hey, everyone, thank you so much for being with us tonight. This is something we do at 8 o'clock, or if you're listening on Spotify and iTunes, thanks for tuning in. We are in week number 2 of our series as we are studying Romans 12.
Right.
A powerful chapter that has a lot of great content in it. And even last week as we finished up, I'm glad we only did 2 verses last week. Because we just talked and talked and talked about it.
Yeah.
And we still didn't even really scratch the
No,
surface.
and there was so much powerful stuff in there. And honestly, the whole book of Romans is like that, but
Yeah.
Especially this chapter 12.
Yeah, and so tonight what we're going to be looking at is Romans 12, verses 9 through 16. And some of the things that we're going to be talking about is this idea of honoring others above ourselves. We're going to be looking at not repaying evil for evil.
There's some tough stuff here tonight.
Blessing those that persecute us. It's crazy.
Things that we, don't really like to do and aren't very good at doing.
Absolutely.
So
And so Paul really hits us with the hammer on this one. So why don't you kick us off by
here
reading?
we go. Romans chapter 12, verses 9 through 13. In the New International Version, in case you're wondering,
The NIV.
here's what it says. Love must be sincere. Hate what is evil. Cling to what is good. Be devoted to one another in love. Honor one another above yourselves. Never be lacking in zeal, but keep your spiritual fervor serving the Lord. Be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, faithful in prayer. Share with the Lord's people who are in need, and practice hospitality. Well, that's it. It's been good talking with you all
have
night.
a good night, everybody. That's a powerful 5 verses.
Yeah, because we don't
4
do any of
verses.
that.
No.
Well, I mean, we like to think we do. But
I like to think I only do it because I get paid to do it.
yeah, there's some truth to that.
There is some truth to that. So, hey, tonight what we really wanted to wrestle with is kind of this concept that, as we were talking a little bit about preparing for this is what's evil, clinging to that.
and we talked about this a little bit earlier today is,
Yeah.
How do you cling, it says, it actually says here, where is it? Cling
to what is good.
Hate what is evil.
Yeah.
Cling to what is good. What does that mean, and how do we do that?
Yeah, and honestly, for the no-brain answer, what a lot of us don't like to do is we like to stop right there.
Yeah.
But did you know that if you read verses in context,
It's amazing what happens.
It's amazing because it shows you everything.
Yeah.
Honestly, the next 5 words are what? They say, not 5 words, it's 7 words. Be devoted to one another in love.
And and we talked about this today is that we've been talking so much about loving others, loving
Oh,
others,
yeah.
loving others, loving others. And there's got to be some people out there saying, do they talk about anything else besides loving others?
Money.
Money, because Jesus talked about loving others and money, and
And
that's
money.
kind of
Those are
basically
his
what
2
we've been
topics.
talking about.
Yeah.
But it is true. But
Oh,
but
man.
again, how when you go back to that, how do you hate evil? What are some of the things? When
Yeah.
it says hate evil, what's that mean, and how do we cling to good?
Yeah, I want to give us a few practical ways. Like, what is Paul writing about? He's writing to the church in Rome. I want to give us a few things of how do we know what is evil and what do we know is good? Because I think everybody has their own objective list of what's evil.
Yeah.
Some people think, in politics, the Democrats or the Republicans are evil, depending on who you support.
Right.
Some people believe either North Korea or China are evil, or some people believe those that murder, etc. But those are all either some are objective or some are subjective, okay,
Right.
depending on what it is.
Right.
And so we have to go to a subjective source, okay? And so
Mhm.
let's just, since we're Christ followers, we follow the Bible.
Right.
And so to look at a few examples, 1 Kings 14:9 says that idolatry is evil, so chasing after other gods.
And we talked about this last week, but I
We
think
did, yeah.
it's good to say again is we have sometimes, I think, in the Western culture, this different idea of idols.
Oh,
We think about
absolutely.
idols in the Bible, and we think about these little statues, these things
the
that
golden calf,
the
in
golden
Exodus
calf, the people
32.
that, and you think, well, we wouldn't ever worship something like that, but
You might worship a golden calf.
that's true. That's true. If it's seared just right.
I
know? But
That's funny.
but there is, we have idols in our lives. It's just different than what
Absolutely.
it is. Anything that gets in the way of us, being totally devoted to God
Oh,
can
yeah.
be an idol.
Yeah, and one of what we talked about last week was money and sex,
Yep.
especially for my generation,
Yep.
that those are our 2 biggest idols.
Yeah.
And then I think you had talked
About
about
arrogance and
arrogance,
pride
yeah,
and
yeah.
pride. Family can be idols. There's all kinds of things that can be idols, and so we've got to not just limit it to what we picture in the Old Testament of being
Exactly.
idols.
Yeah, and so one of the things that Paul writes about to hate evil, or 1 Kings, says is that idolatry is one of those areas to hate and to cling to what is good, which would be rather than pursuing idols, pursue just God. Another example, though, that he gives or that the Bible gives, not just in this, but I think it's Ephesians 4:29 also talks about building each other up with your words.
Yeah.
And so one of the things to hate would be the opposite, which is tearing others down, and that comes from Psalms 50.
And we do that in so many different ways
my
in our
gosh,
culture.
yeah.
I mean, just sarcasm. I'm fluent in sarcasm. It's one of my it's
Really?
one of my spiritual
Me
gifts.
too.
And we do and there's times that's fun.
Yeah.
And it's that everybody's joking. It's not that big a deal. But there's many times, I would say more often than what we know, that sarcasm is really what we're doing is making ourselves look good, tearing someone else down.
Yeah, well, and even like a hint of, there's always a hint of truth in sarcasm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Same with jokes also. And so one of my favorite authors, talks about if you ever want to know if someone's joking or if there's truth behind it, then just watch the eyes. Like watch the emotion behind what they're saying and stuff. And if we're being honest with ourselves, every joke, every bit of sarcasm hides a bit of that truth.
Yeah, my small group is actually doing a study on the words, out of James, and how powerful words are and things. And one of the things that the speaker said was that there is no place in sarcasm in marriage. Zero, none.
Wow,
and
that's powerful.
Yeah, and you know what? How guilty am I of that? Are we of that?
Same.
And it's been kind of laying heavy on my heart since I've
and
heard that.
that actually makes sense, because if you've got, especially if you are dealing with unhealthiness in your marriage, or communication issues, a lot of the things that drive me crazy with Marissa is when she's being sarcastic towards me, and I'm almost positive vice versa for her.
Oh, sure.
Of where you already are a little bit tense, you can sense the tension, and then you just make that jabbing comment that you're joking about,
right?
But it tears others down.
Yep.
Another area that when we're looking at, okay, what is Paul talking about? Hate what is evil, love what is good, and you've already hit on this, and that's the idea of arrogance and pride.
Right.
And that comes in so many verses in the Bible, but this one specifically is referenced from Proverbs 8:13.
Yeah. And here again, as we're talking about generations, I think this is something that my generation really struggles with, because we've been there, done that.
Yeah.
And we've got so much more wisdom than what you young millennials do.
We're
and
so young.
and we have that arrogance of we know what's best. And it comes across as judgmental sometimes. It comes across as legalistic in the Christian world and things. So I think it's something we've got to really be careful of.
Yeah, but I think the flip side is also true for my generation and what younger generations are going to struggle with, because so many of us are creators and visionaries, and lack of patience often is the pride of, okay, well, we're just going to do it our way. We're not going to look up. We're not going to listen. We're not going to learn from the past.
Because and again, it's a blend of the two.
It is,
There is some experience that my generation has that we've been through. We've seen things that you guys haven't and have experienced things. And so there is some wisdom in there, as long as it's done right by us and just like what you said.
I think it has to be humility on both sides.
Absolutely.
And that's how we'll continue to move forward. Hello, Daryl. Thanks for saying hello, man. Hey, last thing that we want to talk about, and this covers kind of a huge variety of, actually, as I was looking for verses on this, something to hate. Mark writes about in chapter 7, kind of just gives you a list of, actually says these are the things you should hate. He lists off, where is it? Sexual immorality, theft, murder, adultery, greed, malice, deceit, lewdness, envy, slander, arrogance, and folly. And the list could keep going on and on and on.
And some of those words, like when you hit adultery, greed, and malice and things like that. I think one of the things that we deal with a lot in our culture is envy.
Oh, that's a huge one.
And
an underrated topic.
Yeah,
we could do a series on.
Exactly, and that's where even social media. Because whenever we're on social media, we put our best foot forward.
Oh, don't we?
We have this perfect life that we like to show with all our pictures and places and things that we're doing. And then we compare our lives with somebody's highlight reels.
Oh, absolutely.
And we can start envying, what they have and what they're doing and things like that. So we got to be very careful with that.
Very careful. And so what I think Paul is really hitting on for these first 4 verses is talking about this idea of what does it look like for you, again, to put others' needs and desires above yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, even the things that we read in the Bible of things to hate, it's all self-centered focus.
It is, and again, we've been talking about that. We almost think like we've been talking about it for forever, but it is so crucial. You look through the New Testament and what Jesus warns us about, it is and tells us to do. It's all about others. It's about others. It's about others, and how we are supposed to die to ourselves. None of us
Yeah.
wants to die to ourselves. Our culture tells us not to die to ourselves. Our
Yeah.
society tells us not to die to ourselves. That you deserve this.
Exactly.
You're entitled to this.
Yeah.
You should go for this, and that makes you better.
Yeah.
That makes you the person. And Jesus said, no, that's not how my economy works.
Yeah, and I thought that's so cool. That's not a kingdom economy. I love that. This idea of, again, we talked about you're allowed to pursue things that are exciting.
Sure.
But I almost hesitate to say that because then so many people just like say, okay, good, I'm off the hook. But it is so important that when you're dealing with these kind of topics of what does it look like to put others first, it starts with putting others first.
Right.
It really does. And sometimes, almost all the time, that means sacrificing things for self.
Exactly. And then it just leads us right into the next verse.
Yeah, right in the next verse. And so we're going to pick up in verse 14. If you're following along with us in Romans chapter 12, Paul writes this. A fun verse, bless those who persecute you.
That's what we all want to do.
Yeah, we want to bless those who persecute us. Bless and do not curse. Brad, I've cursed at you a couple times in my life. I wanted to apologize.
It's all good, man.
Yeah, thanks,
Yeah.
man. I appreciate that. Verse 15, rejoice with those who rejoice. Mourn with those who mourn. And then I love this verse 16. Live in harmony with one another. Do not be proud, but be willing to associate with people of low position. Do not be conceited. Wasn't that a fun, tough pill to swallow?
Yeah, and again, we'd like to close tonight.
Yes, and so
Not
on that
talk about
note,
this.
everybody see you later. No, I think what's so interesting is, really those 7 verses that we just read are all connected
Right.
ideas.
Right.
Especially how he ends that. He says, hey, you are not above anyone. Don't be conceited, okay? But I think the thing that I really want to connect is the idea of blessing those who persecute you and living in harmony with another
Mm-hmm.
are connected ideas because you can't have one without the other.
Okay.
And so what I wanted to talk to you about, or really ask you, Brad, is first, what does it mean to bless those that persecute you? Because whenever I think of that phrase, I think of a fairy like taking pixie dust and throwing, I bless you.
Yeah.
I bless you.
Right.
But what do you think Paul's really hitting on with bless those that persecute you?
And I think it goes back to the whole part about loving people, for
Yeah.
one. And when you're blessing someone, it's not the you're sprinkling water or what have you. Although they
No, pixie dust.
or pixie dust,
Pixie
yeah,
dust.
or putting oil on someone or what have you. But it's that kind heart to them. It's relating to them. It's understanding maybe where they're coming from. I think so often, especially when we're in distance, and again, going back to social media or something that we don't. It's easy for us to comment when we don't know either a person or what's really going on. Until you know somebody and have a relationship with somebody,
Yeah.
and understand how they grew up, how they were treated, so the baggage that they have, then you start relating to them and thinking, oh, that's where they're coming from.
Yeah.
And so now we're
Empathizing.
Thank you. We have empathy towards them because now we're on a connected basis of relationship. So then then we can bless them in that way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does. And it drives me to ask you the question, how difficult is it, and you can be as vulnerable as you want, how difficult is it for you to pray for those type of people?
This is something I had to learn to do. And there's a couple of instances that really come back. And we've talked about, being hurt by the church before.
Yeah.
And there was a couple of ministries that I was involved with that crushed my heart and crushed my soul.
Yeah.
And yet they were still doing good things. I didn't agree with some of what had happened or directions or what have you, and it took me a long time to get to a point knowing that I knew that I was becoming to terms with that when I was actually starting to pray for them. And honestly, at first it was not honest. I knew I was supposed to, so I just started praying. But there got to a point that I realized there was something switched in me that, you know what, I really mean this.
Yeah,
That
that's cool.
I do want God to still bless them. I do want God to still work through them because that's what we're after anyway.
Yeah.
And what that does is it's letting go of my pride.
Yeah.
It's letting go of my hurt.
Yeah.
And the things that I want to get even.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what Paul's been talking about.
Exactly. And I think it's important for you, if you're watching and you're hearing that it is so important to know that when we are praying for others, when we are blessing others, walking with others, even gifting others with things that hurt us, those that do hurt us, those that persecute us or, are mean to us, etc., we don't do so with the mindset to, change them.
Right.
Okay, I'm doing this just so that they will change their actions.
Right.
I'm going to pray for their heart to be changed. I'm going to pray for their man, this Johnny, he's, doing A, B, and C. I pray, God, that you smite him or change him. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think it has to come from a God. I just desperately want your creation to find hope in you.
And you want them to have a right relationship with
Exactly.
others and with God.
Exactly. And I think part of that is also praying, God, fix my heart too.
Absolutely.
And that's part of the second thing that we're going to talk about is
Yeah.
this idea of living in harmony with one another. Once we get through that, what is a few practical steps that we can give people? We already talked about one of them. But what are a few practical steps we can give people who are struggling to live in harmony with those who are just so different than them?
Yeah. I didn't listen to the last part of that question because I was answering it in my mind.
That's okay. You barely listen to any of this anyway.
You say. I think part of the things we have to do, that some of the next steps we have to take is we got to understand that it's part of it is just our pride again.
Absolutely.
That we're being offended, what have you, because it's about us, and then we've got to break that down. And instead of pointing out to somebody else how wrong they may be, we got to look at it and say, where is it in my life that I'm having an issue?
Yeah, acknowledgement.
And before I go to them and say, hey, here's your problem, I've got to figure out what my problem is first.
Yeah.
And how much of my baggage is actually relating, because it's so much easier. I can see problems in your life much easier than I can see problems in my life.
Doesn't Matthew write about this?
I think so.
Yeah, I think. See how I just lobbied that up to you? I think Matthew writes about this.
That was very good. I believe it's in. Let me look here. 7:5.
Wow.
And
we were almost on the same page.
Exactly. And he talks about taking the log. I've actually preached on this, and it was very humbling, and it is. Because a lot of people say, well, you can't judge me. Well, honestly, Matthew, a little bit later, does say that, yeah, you can judge, but what you got to do first is make sure that you're coming from a pure heart, that you have taken the steps of getting the log out of your eye, the things that are a problem with you, and then you can go with a sincere heart out of just what you just said, out of love for that person, wanting them to have a whole relationship with others and God.
Yeah. I don't know if you can have an honest relationship living in harmony with people unless you recognize that you're always going to have to sacrifice your logs.
Yes.
Like,
it starts with you.
Exactly. And
we never want to start with us. We want to start with the other person.
Yeah, if they would just change their ways.
And that's true in marriage.
Oh, dude, absolutely.
And I think that's part of the issue. And again, it's that dying to others, and before you go, say, what do I own in this?
Yeah, and I think there's two extremes to this, actually. I think the first extreme is the mindset, there's not a log in my eye. It's all other people.
Right.
And then there's the individuals that say, I can't start serving other people until I fix my baggage. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
I think that there's both of those extremes, and I think it's got to be once you acknowledge the logs, keep taking steps in those directions, but that shouldn't prevent you from loving other people.
Absolutely.
It should not prevent you from using your gifts to serve one another and live in harmony.
Yeah, and one of the things we talked about was praying for others, and here's what also happens is that a lot of times I think you alluded to this, is that you want to pray for somebody hoping that they're going to change, and what you'll find is that prayer doesn't change them. It changes you.
That'll preach.
And it changes your heart.
I knew where you were going with that. Like 6 words in, I'm like, oh, dude, this is going to slay.
And that has happened to me. So because you think, well, I'm going to pray that they're going to change, and they're going to see their evil ways, and they're going to, and all of a sudden you start realizing that it's your heart that really needs to change.
Oh, man. And I think that's maybe one of the things that drove Jesus so insane when he was working with the Pharisees. And even his disciples didn't get it, where it was like, no. Stop self-centering your focus and start other-centering your focus.
And how many times, I think we had this discussion today in staff meeting a little bit, is how many times that you realize that I'm being selfish, and even
absolutely.
You think that you're thinking of others.
Yeah.
But when you really look at it,
the intentions,
the intention is actually, this benefits me.
Yeah.
It doesn't benefit the other person. In reality, whatever I'm hoping for them is actually benefiting me, and so I'm selfish once again.
Absolutely. So if you're watching with us tonight, what's one of those, and again, this might be something a little bit too vulnerable to share. You could even put the word pride or greed or envy. What's one of the logs in your eyes that you struggle with? You can either comment down below or send us a private message so we know how we can be praying with you. The last practical step we want to give might be one of the hardest to monitor.
Yeah.
Because again, back to our intentions thing, you want to make sure your intentions are good in doing this. And that last step is have an honest and pure conversation with the individual, if it is like a in-person relationship,
Yeah.
that you are struggling to live in harmony with.
And this is one thing that you and I differ a lot in this area because you are masterful at
Masterful.
at confrontation.
Masterful.
Yeah, you've gotten very good at confronting people in a loving way. Not you
I
don't do it
appreciate-
all the time.
Brad, I just want to let you know I appreciate that.
I
He said I was masterful. I'm still stuck on that word.
I hate confrontation of any kind.
Yeah.
You know, I would rather ignore it, shove it under the rug. Barb will tell you she fought with me to
all the
get
condiments on your burger when they get put on.
exactly.
This guy would rather scrape off all of the condiments on his burger that he
That-
didn't ask for,
Yeah,
rather than go up and
yeah,
ask them
but
to remake it.
In our relationship, she got to the point that she would force me, say, "We're not
Mm.
shoving this under the carpet. We're going to
Yeah.
talk about this and
Yeah.
in a loving way." But and so, how do you do that?
Yeah. For me, it is so because there's often tension and friction in the relationship, and I feel it. It means more to me to have the harder conversation. But I also study. This is gonna sound so weird. I love to study people and how people respond in the past. And if that relationship's there, I usually have read how people react in certain ways. And I also have gotten to a point where how I want to say it is usually too extreme,
Mm-hmm.
and it's going to be received better if I say the dumbed down version. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So less is good in confrontation.
And my guess is you've learned that through experience of doing it the wrong way.
Absolutely.
Because I've seen you grow so much in that. You
Yeah.
know, now, for those of you who don't know, I've known Jordan. I just had to fill out a thing. I've known Jordan for 14 years now,
Oh,
since you were
man.
9 years old.
I know, it's crazy,
And,
isn't it?
and to watch you progress in that,
Yeah.
because there was time that you just ticked everybody off.
Yeah, well, I think it was honestly true. I think it was honestly sophomore year of college, something really started to hit with me.
Yeah.
But then it was really my senior year that I started to really focus on my personality and others' personalities. And so really the last 3 years in confrontation, if you can get to the point where saying, not everything I want to say is important.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's what I've had to get to. Not everything I want to say is important. What's the theme? And this is actually how I do sermons too. What's the one line I want to get across? And what's the nicest way I can say that without sounding like, well, welcome aboard. We're so glad you're here for airlines. Let us know if you need anything. You know how airline people always do it, but
Yeah.
you're just like, they don't want to be here.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
How can you say in a humble way? And the way that I do that is asking questions.
Yeah.
And that's the
That's good.
biggest
That's
thing.
good stuff.
Asking questions.
And what we're honestly talking about here is EQ. You know, you've heard
Yeah.
of IQ,
yeah.
and this is just an emotional
Emotional intelligence.
quotient. Yeah, it's emotional intelligence, and it's something that IQ you can't get really any more IQ. You can't really study and be better IQ. Your IQ is your IQ.
My IQ's
Exactly.
Yeah, it's not.
But
getting
your
any better.
EQ you can actually get better at,
Yeah.
and that is what will get you through life more than anything else.
Yeah.
And there's books about that. We can talk about that.
Yeah, we have a few books that Bruce has given me to read and stuff. If you can grow in your emotional intelligence, it'll revolutionize your marriage,
Yeah.
your singleness, your relationships,
everywhere,
your family.
workplaces, your
Oh, my
kids, you name
goodness.
it.
Yeah, and so it's so important that you have those conversations. But doing so, again, less is more,
Mhm.
and honesty is good. But again, you have to value the relationship.
Right.
I think that's what also matters a lot. to
that's
me.
what it comes. Yeah,
Yeah.
It's about your heart. Again,
Yeah.
preparing your heart to have those confrontational conversations.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, hey, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We hope that it was beneficial for you as we studied
It was
through the
beneficial
first
for me.
16 verses. Was it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
There
so
you go.
good, man. That's so good. Thank you for so much for tuning in. This Sunday, I am actually wrapping up our
Yeah.
Shattered series. And so we'd love to see you either at 9 o'clock or 10:30. Next Thursday, we will be here. We might be a little bit tired because it's our staff retreat.
Oh, that's right.
We're going to eat a lot of food, have a lot of good talks, and play ping pong. It's going to be great. So join us next Thursday at 8 o'clock. And if you join us for just half the video, you can catch us on Spotify or iTunes for the rest. Have a great rest of your evening. We will see you on Sunday.
It's time
we
for
are
us to go have
out.
dinner.
It is time for us.
See y'all.